Now, why did Mercies for Animals drop Nicole Joncas like a hot potato? Because of Gabriel Villeneuve, because of S.P.A. Canada, and because of the Berger Blanc report that aired a few years back on Radio-Canada, and because of the Vachon Farm failed liberation attempt. Nicole Joncas also attempted to set a fire already before. So it's of no surprise that she would fear activists would use the same tactics that she has used in the past against her. When Nicole Joncas attempted to liberate a calf from a farm that was actually a well-managed farm, she sent videos to an editor to have them edited, to take out the incriminating evidence out of the videos, and to release these videos on social networks and on the internet as evidence as to what happens in a dairy farm. However, the neglect that was to be portrayed in the video was created by Nicole Joncas and her team of activists. There's an activist in town that goes by the name of Frédéric. He's been liberating animals and sending them to Nicole Joncas. When confronted Mercies for Animals, they dropped Nicole Joncas because the evidence was now out there that she had faked videos. Now, let's recap back to the Berger Blanc saga and Gabriel Villeneuve. Gabriel Villeneuve is the reason why student activists today are not able to wear a mask and hide their face. Before the student protests, before the P6 bylaw came into effect, in the days of S.H.A.C, which is Stop Huntington Animal Cruelty, lab testing facilities in Europe, they did protests in the streets of Westmount in front of VIPs' houses. They would yell insults to their families, to their kids. They would throw water bottles at police vehicles, and they would wear masks. The same type of things you would see within the Animal Liberation Front. They're all wearing a mask to protect their identities. The SPVM infiltrated S.H.A.C and the Gabriel Villeneuve activists that are known sympathizers of the Animal Liberation Front. They hired the black dude who appeared causing the animal cruelty and euthanizing the dogs on the video that was aired on Radio-Canada. When Jean-Claude Gingras, the mayor of l'Assomption, when Janine Larose of Opération Félix, a well-known hoarder, and I forget who else was at that meeting, went to the SPVM to lay criminal charges on the Berger Blanc. The SPVM threw them out of there and said, this is irrelevant, this information and this evidence is tainted. Gabriel Villeneuve is a well-known terrorist. Now Gabriel Villeneuve has teamed up with Nicole Joncas of Teja. There's old rumors from La Marche and Pinard days that Nicole Joncas may have had something to do with the fire that broke out in the barn at La Marche Pinard, because she was the one who reported the fire in that puppy mill while doing her investigative work. Now, having seen what type of investigative work she does in a barn, she probably caused the fire herself by accident. It would be of no surprise because on YouTube, I dubbed the recent Vachon Liberation with Benny Hill music. That's what the animal activists are here in town. They're a freaking joke, full of lies and conflicts of interest. So when I confronted publicly the fact that Nicole Joncas had something to do with the chickens that were exposed on Mercies for Animals, and the fact that Mercies for Animals blog was endorsing Teja's, I confronted Mercies for Animals. The husband of the female director of Mercies for Animals gets back to me within the same evening and tells me he's looked at the evidence that my friends have exposed, which were the pictures, and all of the additional evidence on Nicole. He tells me that Mercies for Animals will disassociate themselves with Tejas immediately, and that they, however, cannot get involved in this case to force the authorities to get involved because their mandate is not dealing with sanctuary or animal abuse. It's about exposing the for-profit animal industry, such as the dairy farms, the meat market, and etc. Now, let's go back to the Huskies of S.H.A.C 2011. The authorities failed to discharge of their legal duties and did not do their job. The breeder goes to court fearing for his life, fearing for his property. The authorities do not do anything about Tejas. They ignore the situation and they hope it disappears. Now Nicole appears to fear for her life and for her property. Whose fault is that? When I laid criminal charges against the SPCA A.L.F in La Belle, Sainte Agathe, that was the argument, that their failing to discharge of a legal duty endangers the people that they are not enforcing the laws on. Who is to blame? Because the activists are outraged that the authorities are not doing their job when they're provided with evidence of animal neglect and cruelty? Look at Luca Magnotta. He's not an isolated case. He's of the higher extreme, definitely. But there are hundreds of Luca Magnottas out there in the animal world, even in the rescue world, that the SPCAs and the authorities don't want to waste their energy and time with because it costs money. And the penalties in court are weak for a first-time offender. But if you were to build a case, we wouldn't have a first-time offender every 20 years appearing in court and getting slapped, a little slap on the wrist. They would be charged because there would be evidence that this is a reoccurring issue. Here, the SPCAs do not protect the animals, and on top of that, they endanger the animals. Look at the SPCA in St. Jude. The SPCA releases the breeder's name. 1,000 or so minks get liberated in St. Jude because the SPCA and the ministry did not do their job properly. So who did the SPCA send to take pictures in St. Jude? Known A.L.F sympathizers. Some of these people that went in to gather evidence for the Montreal SPCA in St. Jude, who have histories of liberating animals themselves. Now about Gabriel Villeneuve and his court case. He was charged under criminal court under what they call in French du tapage, which is disturbing the peace. He was also charged for wearing a mask with the intent of committing a crime. He argued it was his constitutional right of freedom of expression to conceal his face. The Court of Appeal, the highest court in Quebec, disagreed and has ruled that there was no violation of any constitutional charters, that if you intend to wear a mask at a protest, there is a high likelihood that you intend on committing a crime. So that's why the P6 was able to be empowered and not contested, because the courts have already ruled previously, before the P6 was enacted by the city of Montreal, that wearing a mask was a precedent to be charged with the intent of committing a crime.